He's the data guy and he wants to have a talk with his business pals while they're off the clock on podcast like a business.
Welcome back to Podcast Lab. Today I have the pleasure of introducing Yaw Asante, former coworker of mine and the best project manager I have ever had. Thank you, Yaw, for joining us today.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Ryan.
Nothing like putting him up on a pedestal right away, Rob.
I know,
setting the bar
just
high,
so he can
man.
drop me.
You know, I knew you'd think that, but I could back it up. So I was on a project with Yaw, and I remember, Yaw, we have worked together in probably 8 years now. I know you've been project management, and now you're actually going into analytics, which I love to hear. But I remember I was on a project with him where we were merging all these call centers together, and I got on the call, and I was one of the first ones on the call. We were waiting for everybody to get started, as you do. And I said, hey, Yaw, can I go first? Because I've got a meeting relatively close after this. He said, Rob, go ahead. And I said, all right, so here's an update on all the things you want to know about, because I know you want to know about A, B, C, and D. I have a couple questions about F and G. If you could follow up with me for these people, they can just email me, and I'm happy to meet with them later. If there's anything else you need, I'm happy to drop. And he said, everybody pause. This is how this call should run. This is a guy who knows how to do what he's doing. And I needed that validation at that time more than you ever realize, man. That's what helped give me the confidence to keep going. So I really do appreciate you. And you are the best project manager I've ever had. So.
And y'all, that's the fourth time in 2 weeks I've heard that story. So it absolutely had an impression on him. Like he preaches that, man. He preaches that. You really had an impact on him on that. Well,
front. And then I saw you get the new job, and 100 people commented on your page. Like, people don't comment, they like or whatever, but that shows that you do this to everybody. You didn't just do this to me because I'm a good guy. That's your brand, man. And I was like, I can't wait to catch up with him. So that's what brings you here today to talk IT project management a little bit, if you don't mind, because I know that that's just a function you know a lot about. And a lot of our listeners don't get to pick the project manager. Ryan has to be his project manager. So it's that's one hat versus where you and I were, where there's teams of 20 to 100 and big projects. Just a little bit about that, but I definitely want to know what got you into analytics and all that stuff. So just talk a little bit about your background and you.
Yeah. So I think before we met 8 years ago, that there was a little bit of a history, and I'll quickly bring you up to that. So I'm an engineer by profession, and I know most people didn't know that. So I did civil engineer for several years, and then I thought I could move into something else, and I'm sure we'll get into that. And so I went to graduate school. I got, at the time they were selling the MBA pretty good, and said, hey, you could get an MBA and do whatever you wanted. And so using the engineering, there was a project that I did here in Dallas. The Dallas area, in Texas. Go Texas. And so I did this, and there was a lot of project management, and as an engineer, right, runways, taxiways, and all that stuff. And somebody said, "Oh, are you like certified and blah blah blah?" And I said, "Oh no, we as engineers we do this, as a byproduct of what we do, And then they said, "Oh, at the time too, unemployment was a little bit tricky, so you didn't know where your next move would be. So it seemed like a good idea to go get certified and learn the project management properly." And so that brought me to project management. And so it was very easy to put those skills together, which I think includes a lot of communication, right? As you could tell. So it's not just
you're way better at it than me. I wish I was better at project management.
It's not just about the analytics and the budgets, costs, time slippages, but it's just about communication as well.
Right.
And making sure that's what it is, making sure that people are on track. So, I did that. And then I kind of moved because it always seemed like there was something you could do better, right? Sometimes it's your own intuition. Sometimes people say, "Oh, you would be good at this," or you have to go stand in for somebody to do that. It's, "Oh, you were great at this." And so I kind of moved into account management.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. So with clients, but in the value-based care space.
Still very communication focused too, then. You're leveraging the same skills.
Communication focus, yeah. And so, I did that for a little bit. And then as part of account management, what happens is you have customers, you solve their day-to-day problems. You work on projects, you get them to where they're supposed to get to. Then if they need additional products of what you carry, they come back to you and you kind of help explain, hey, this product can also help you here. Or sometimes you even tell them, you say, hey, the way you guys are going with this, we have this product. Do you want to try it? And so you kind of do it's kind of called upsell a little bit, but you kind of do it, genuinely, authentically, and people, like and love you for that. So I did that. And then, the company that we had the sales guys leave, so there was no sales guys. And so when the marketing team would get leads, they said, there's nobody to take these leads. But hey, you've been doing a small portion of it and we think you'll be good at it. So why don't you do it? And so
I love it.
I know, right?
I love it.
They'll pass these leads to me. And I started closing them at a faster rate than even the sales guys who were there. And they said, oh my God, you're good at this. So then again, there was a transition again. So I guess what happens, and I'm a old Oprah student in those days who would watch a lot of Oprah, and she would say that, be your best self. And your number one job is to find out what you are good at. And so that allows you to kind of move a little bit from career to career, and continue to be a better self. And to the extent that you continue to do well, you do great. But I think, yes, communication is great. And so that's why in our good old project management days, it was good to be able to understand the room, see what people needed, get straight to the point in terms of, what we needed to get things on schedule. And then we'll go that way.
Dude, you just hit on a major point. So my big challenge right now is I feel that there's so many jobs that people could be getting, they're just not trying to get because they don't realize their skill gap. They just want to fill. Maybe they could be a data scientist or a data analyst, but they just need a couple skills and they're not even sure, one, that those jobs exist or why they should apply for them, or two, that they could get them. And I mean, I'm talking people, if you're working and making under 60, 70,000 a year and you want to be working from home, there's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of those jobs available, but you need those skills. And how you took communication and added that to an engineering degree, a very detailed degree, and said, you know what, if I get good at communicating detailed things, the world was your oyster, dude. You went from project management to inside sales to outside sales. That is so cool that you just took that skill and went with it. And that's probably not the skill you went to college and said, you know what?
No.
Engineering, I'm going to be Mr. Communicator.
I know. And I think it's all about us, right? So we need to understand, who we inherently are, right? So, I think there was a story, some of you guys may have heard it, where an eagle, got hatched together with chickens, right? And so this eagle is in the coop and they are scratching for dirt. And this eagle says, I'm bad at this. I can't even get food to eat, and she sees, other eagles in the air. And she said, man, there's something tells her that I want to do that, and then she tells her, her chicken mates, if you will, and they laugh at her. They said, oh, impossible, right? But then a few weeks later, she's strong, and one day she just takes off, and they are awestruck, right? So I know it's a little story, but it really is true. It really is true for all of us, right? So you would see, what they call inclinations or knocks, right? Which is to say, where do we lean towards sometimes naturally after work? That stuff that we think is not work, where do we lean towards that? And people tell us, oh, how did you do this? And you did it so easily. And people try to, do the same and they struggle. You see that you have something there. So our number one job is to follow that and say, where is that going to take us? And it takes us usually to our best self.
I love that view. I think so too, man. I mean, we're just constantly working on ourselves. You know what I mean? Every year, I want to be a little bit better than I was the year before. Man, that's so great. So, we definitely should ask you the questions I normally ask people, because I know that people want to know the standard stuff. Like, how did you start getting into data and management and that? I'm guessing engineering was pretty data driven. But what about project management? Was there a lot of data in project management?
Oh, there's data everywhere, right? There's data everywhere. I mean, and I don't think, I woke up doing engineering and I said, oh, data is everything. But I remember in the early 2000s, there was this mathematician, I think it was called Clive Humby or Henry or something. I can't remember his name. And he said, data is the new oil, right? Data is the new oil. And I think I sat down for a minute and I said, that is so true, right? So when you have, oil in its unrefined state, it's almost useless. But then when you refine it and you get, asphalt for roads or gas or whatever, it becomes really valuable. Similarly, data in its raw or uncut stages is also almost useless. And until you start to, slice and dice it and make it do things for you to tell the story that it really has to tell, you find out that it's everywhere. It's everywhere. Yep. So I think that was where, but then when you come to engineering, we're doing things like, standard deviations. You're designing some structure, right? And you're saying, one standard deviation or two standard deviations, or one standard deviation is 68% and two standard deviations is 95% and three standard deviations. So you get into that.
And what's funny is I still use that stuff. I use that for market analysis when I'm fitting things to a product to a market. You still use that for pay distributions. It's so funny that same thing, but man, with engineering, if you're wrong, the bridge goes down. If I'm wrong, I restart the server. You know what I mean? Maybe I have to do some night work to fix stuff. I
think it's really funny because you can take those concepts and apply them. I know Dave Barlow and I spend our times playing video games where we calculate the standard deviations of how much time we're going to spend doing an activity to get the next unlock or something. But there's no consequences to that. If I'm wrong, I spend more time or less time.
It is everywhere. It is everywhere. I mean, it is. And then you come into project management and you have the triple constraint, right? Budget, cost, quality. Are we going to slip? If we're going to slip, are we going to spend more money? Do we throw more bodies at it? It's all data.
And at the end of the day, those do come down to real numbers for all those points. How many people, how much money, and how long? I need solid numbers. I can't say, not too long with not too many people and don't spend too much. Those are very real.
Yep. I mean, and today, healthcare risk adjustment, right? And it always seems like it's analytics because it is analytics. It is a statistical, process which takes into consideration, the resources that are required to fully capture a patient while allowing, the healthcare insurer, because they cannot make a loss, right? So how do you allow the healthcare insurance companies to get compensated enough so that they can compensate their providers? And then that's
a really hard problem to solve. So you're in the middle trying to make sure that the margins are still maintained between the companies.
Not only that. So maybe I should use an example. So let's say you have two patients. One is 29, 30 years old, and the other one is 72 years old, right?
I love when you get down to real examples. It's the real data that helps tell the story. You know what I mean? Okay, so back to your story.
It's all about story. And I think data is all about stories.
No, you have to. I mean, the real examples are what makes it make sense. Otherwise, it kind of isn't. So, so 29, 32, two patients.
Yep. So somebody's 29 or 30. Let's take 29. It's a better number. Okay. I think I was happy when I was 29.
Right, you hit that switch.
And then another one is 72, right? And they all come to see their provider and present, take anything, COVID, influenza, right? But the 29-year-old is totally healthy, has no comorbidities or no underlying sickness. But a 72-year-old has a lot of comorbidities and underlying conditions. So they have diabetes, they have emphysema, they have bronchitis, whatever, right? So now they come with COVID. And that's where you hear people stay on the ventilator for 3 days and others stay on it for a month. So how does an insurance company, take care of that or get compensated for that, knowing that 72-year-old person would need more resources than a 29-year-old person, right? And so that's kind of what we do, right? Yeah.
Because people like to say, well, the hospitals will just figure it out. And it's easy to just say they'll figure it out, but that's real money. Hospitals need to get paid to pay those people to provide that service. Insurance companies are willing to pay, but don't want to, they literally are not set up to pay the entire amount. You know what I mean? They just don't have an unlimited amount of money.
They don't.
That's an interesting problem. I didn't even think of, honestly.
So the role of what we do sometimes is to make sure you have Blue Cross Blue Shield, right? Company, so an insurance company, and they would come to a company like us and say, we want to make sure that our market, we understand how the sickness level of each person, right? So they said, if this person is truly sick, we want to know. So what the software does is goes through their charts or their progress notes or their encounters, right? And then says, it's identified that they have this sickness level. Can we find anything that suggests that they are sicker than they are? Or can we find anything that shows that they've been overscribed to have been more sick than they actually are? Then you have to take some of those things off, because when the government catches you, you're going to pay a fine for saying that the person is more sick. So you need to get it kind of accurate. So that's kind of what we do. Simply defined.
So you can't go either way. People would think, oh, those insurance companies are just going to make everybody look super sick so they don't have to give any money, but you can't. So you really have to be careful from both sides.
Yes, you do. I
didn't even think about the data at that level. But yeah, I mean, everybody eventually goes through that. That's just the billing part that we all ignore in the healthcare system. Know?
Yep. So think about it, and it's not a story, but let's say you go to the doctor's office, right? And you go there and when you finish, they give you some paper and they say, walk to that window there. You go to that window there. What they do there is they take your thing, they look at what the doctor said, and they write, oh, they write certain codes, right? They call them HCCs, and then they move it on, and then that gets sent to your bill or your claims. That goes.
Okay.
What happens is,
that code is going to be like, hey, I was doctor, and at this date and time, I saw Rob or Yaw, and we did X. A very specific X.
Exactly.
It'd be different for...
And we also spoke about this, and we spoke about that, right? So, but then sometimes, the guy at the window is not paying attention, or, their daughter said they just came back from school. Did you find something to eat or whatever? So they don't record all the codes. And so some things get dropped. That's one way. And so it goes on to the insurance company, and then it goes on to the government. I'm using the government for, health
well, they're the regulatory.
Services. Yep. So it goes there, and then they send it back and say, we approve. Sometimes there's a drop there as well, because it's an 837 file or it's a whatever file, and there was an error in the data again. And so not everything got accepted, so it comes back. So at the end of the day, companies like us would go and say, give me Robert's file again. Let me go through it. And based on what is on the file, let me see whether everything, all the data that is supposed to be on there is on there. Let's see whether there was no drop.
Love that.
Yeah.
I love that, man. So like with the company you and I worked at, there was actually a guy who helped me. I don't know if you knew this, but he was with corporate, and he worked for the, a different office, but I would kind of run my stuff by him.
Yeah.
And while we were doing it, he told me, he's like, hey, Rob, I'm diagnosed with, what was it? He has a video about it, and he told me about it, and I can't remember. I'll have to look it up. But he had a cancer that could have been diagnosed 6 or 7 years before, but the doctor wrote 0.01 instead of 0.1 on his chart. And like after tests, there were other stuff that were just a little bit missed. But it's like, I knew him and he was 30. He had 3 kids and he was me. It was like my same age. And all of a sudden he was all... And in the middle of our project, he was a risk of him passing away, and he did pass away before the end of that project. But I was able to like tell his wife, like, thank you for the time that he still spent with me. And it was just the record keeping of data. And I told him, I was like, look, man, that's got to get fixed. And I'm very happy you're working on it. Let me just say that. I'm going to try to not tear up.
We do a little bit more as well. So that is one which is done after the fact. So Rob went to the doctor.
So patient data.
The patient data after the fact. So he went, they sent his bill. It got transmitted through some ETL. It went to the government.
We would call that patient fact data. That's just all the date and time this happens. Basically a receipt of your healthcare. Everything that's happened with date and time stamps.
The next one is to say, okay, why do we want to wait till we get there? Why don't we take the last 3 years of Rob's data and see some of his chronic conditions or whatever he could be getting, right?
Sure.
Maybe because he's obese or he's whatever it is. Should we check for diabetes or whatever it is? And give that to his doctor when Robert comes in for some usual checkup, right? Yep. So when you do that, he comes and, hey, Rob, I see that your A1C is going up. Have you checked for this? Or your sugar level is up. So we do that before the fact. And so
personalized, not like, hey, you're 32. This is something you should worry about at 32. It's like, hey, your medical records say you should be worried about this.
That's one. I mean, so you could get somebody
that's kind of cool.
Say, at 50, you need to do these tests. You need to do a colon test. So that's one. But then there's the other one saying that looking at your previous records, it seems like we need to focus on this. So go reduce weight, which is the same thing they tell everybody. Go reduce your sugar, try to do this, whatever, and come back instead of a year later. Come back 3 months later or come back 6 months later. So that's
then you want that new data point because you're going to show that it's improving. It's not just a fixed data point at that point. Now you're using your health record to kind of, I kind of dig that.
Absolutely. So it's beneficial for everybody, right? So the new healthcare thing we are trying to go to is to say, instead of the old fee for service where you just pay whatever, we are trying to say we want to make sure that there's quality of care. So it's the interest of the insurance company as well to make sure that you're healthy. If they don't want you to go into the emergency room because they're going to pay because they are getting a certain fixed amount of money for your sickness level. So they need to make sure your sickness level is well cared of. So anyway, so that's a little bit of what I do. And I know it's data and I know you love data.
Oh, that's so cool to me, man. I'm a geek. I'm all about that. But I mean, I could see how companies would need that too. Because a lot of that, this sounds crazy, but I was talking to somebody yesterday who works and he does flight control. And a lot of his stuff is still go to this website, type in 4 digits, hit export to a text file, bring that over to Excel. And I mean, you're talking like major regional area, right? Like it's not something small. And I think that people are dealing with that in the insurance world. And to your point, I could see how a company in that situation would more likely currently just be paying fines and fees to governments and regulators than fixing the problem because it's just easier to pay the fee than to fix it. You know what I mean? Without that insight.
Those fees are huge. So what happens when there's an audit, is they take 200 members or something and they see what they find on it. And if they find something...
And they go to that same data you talked about. They look through and say, hey, you're collecting this. You know this.
But if they find whatever they find on the 200 members will be extrapolated over your 1 million members. And so the fines there, and I don't want to mention names of people who 6 million, 10 million is huge. So
for you, the sell is like the value add, I should say, for your product is like, why pay it in fees? Be proactive and provide a better service than be reactive.
It's all about ROI, right? Come pay us, $1 and we'll give you $10 back. We find you incremental codes, and then we also make sure that you stay on the straight and narrow so that you don't get fined if there's an audit. Yes.
I've got a question for you. Actually, I do know somebody who works in technology at Blue Cross. We'll say hypothetically, but they came to me and they said, Rob, my biggest data challenge is how do I prove ROI? I know we can run models and we can estimate it. How can I go back a year later and say this got the ROI I didn't? What would you recommend somebody in a technology situation? How would they? I don't know. I mean, do they do that internally? Do you try to partner with somebody?
The first thing I'll tell them selfishly is to contact me, right?
Of course you would.
That's the first thing. But
hey, sales 101, you got to.
But looking at the numbers, we can throw some easy numbers out. Let's say it costs $6 to review a chart, right? And then if you found one HCC, the average HCC is about $4,000, right? I mean, $6, $4,000. So you could find on the chart 2 or 3, right? So we are saying, hey, bring your, and what we do today is we do proofs of concept. Bring your 200 charts just to make sure, right? You probably have your own vendor. Maybe their system is not good enough, AI, NLP, whatever. Bring it, test us out, 200 charts. If you find something, if you don't find anything, you actually don't charge you. If you don't find anything, we let you go. We said, hey, good deal. You're doing a great job. Go. If you find something, we say, hey, do you want to do some more with us so we can find some more with you? So
yes,
I think the ROI is an easy calculation if you look at the costs,
Yeah. No, and that's what I thought too. It's just break it down, right? Now, what would you do, let's say a year out, to say, hey, did we realize this for you or not? Is there anything you think you could do for an employee or to a customer to show them that? Or would they go through a sales process? That'd be more of an account management process, right?
But you know what? These guys are super busy. And so most of the time, they don't want to go back. They said, hey, if it's done, and there's always a time limit when you can get your reimbursement from the government.
Right.
So
you're not going to go back and get the money in history.
They don't want to get it. They say, you know what? Let's go get some charts for this year or this payment year, and then show me what you got. So I understand your question theoretically, but most people want to look forward and see what they can do forward. Yeah,
that's why I ask, man. Fair answer. I get it.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, you're dealing with these people en masse. I know one or two, right? I don't have to go and find leaders and deal with these people regularly. And I love the ones I do. They're great people, but it's a big ask to manage technology at a company that size. You know what I mean? There's a lot of moving pieces. Oh, that's wild.
Isn't it called life that everywhere you go, there are people, and actually, the people are even more difficult than the technology and the machines, right? So to the extent that you have people, there's always something you have to deal with and learn from your mistakes, or learn from your previous experience and say, how do I best go through some of these things so that we don't have some of the challenges that everybody seems to have.
Amen, man. I feel that all the time.
Speaking of those challenges, it sounds like you've been working with data for as long as any of us. Is there a point where you leveraged that data and it burnt you? Is there a point where you looked at it wrong, or the data was wrong or something, and you ended up going, damn, I shouldn't have, or oops, I shouldn't have?
Or put too much trust in it, or...
So I think the data is the data. So I think data by itself doesn't burn you. It's the dirty data that burns you, right? And I know it feels like it's the same thing, but it's not the same thing, right? I mean, if there's an issue with the data, whether it's your phone company got hacked, and therefore suddenly somebody put 20,000 on your credit card because your stuff was somewhere, it feels like a ban, but it wasn't your fault. But I think where you could, and I think we should always learn from what happens, right? So let's say in my healthcare space, we have a project, or in project management, we have a project that takes 8 weeks. And as part of the 8 weeks, we're supposed to collect data for 2 weeks, whatever the healthcare data is, claims, 837s, all the data. And then the coding or the review, the software would run through the validation, and the coders, you have manual coders who put their eyes to the codes to make sure that what the system is suggesting or predicting is actually correct. So they curate it. So let's say that takes 4 weeks, and then you're supposed to submit it. The process of getting the data ready and submitting it to the government is 2 weeks. So that's 8 weeks right there. Everything is tight. They bring it to you, and the client says, which happened? Hey, can you get this done? We said, yeah, we do this all the time, every day for 8 weeks. And then you start, and the data validation is off. Every time there's a field that is missing, there's something that is empty, and you keep on kicking it back. And it happened for 4 weeks. We're still, I was going to use the word, but we're still working with the data, right? That is so eventually we got it done, but everybody had to stay, late into the night and to get it done. So you would say that, yeah, data bent you. So what we do now is we learn from that lesson. And when somebody comes, we say, hey, when the data is okay, it takes this amount of time. Right. Yeah. Right. So you set the expectation right and say, hey, what we see from data is that, whether it's an eligibility file or there's a data specification, when these things are missing, you do a data deep dive, you go through it with your data person and say, hey, we need these things to be correct. So when you write your query, make sure that these things are correct. When you set the expectation up front, then it doesn't burn you so much, right? It's still going to be hard because there's a deadline, but then expectations has been set. And sometimes even when the project hasn't started, you can say, hey guys, bring us a sample of data. Give us something. Let's start looking at the data. Let's try and see whether there are major issues with the data that, we need to solve now, so that when you are ready to say go, at least would have taken care of some of the minor issues here.
And I'm glad you bring that up, because a lot of people think like services like what you're doing, they're like, well, I can't do that. My data is too broken. I have yet to go to a company ever that was like, we have the cleanest data. We know our data is good. It's just not. I mean, it's generally dirty most places. Maybe they have a couple types of data they've really gotten good at curating because they really care about it. But most of it is...
Yeah, I agree.
Needs some help.
I agree. I mean, data is always data. Yeah.
I was going to say, I like hearing too that you're basically setting expectations. Like you said, there's a certain set of criteria, and that's something we've heard over a bunch of our guests who work in data. Is that the data doesn't really matter; it's the criteria by which you receive it and by which you analyze it. That's the important part. It's really cool to see that from the perspective of your industry as well. It was right on the nose. Yeah,
and even small things like in engineering, you're going to design some road, right? And then you go there and you put your thing there from Tuesday to Thursday, right? And you get some data and say, hey, I'm good to go, right? You're in trouble. Because maybe people are going to the market on Saturday or people are going somewhere on Sunday. So how you got to not just get enough. The data has to be enough. It has to be accurate. It has to be complete. It has to be over a significant period of time to make sure that sample size is correct, right? So dirty data comes in different shapes and forms, because otherwise you design with that Tuesday to Thursday, guess what? Your road is going to fail.
I love that you said it that way, because that's just the most basic breakdown of statistics. You really do have to make sure whatever you're doing is attributable to the population. That means, like, if you pick 200 records, we're hoping those records are really similar to the million of your customer. You want it to be. If you just pick 100 of the, females, boy, you may be missing a whole thing on males or older ages or younger ages or genders or whatever.
I agree. Yeah,
that's crazy, man.
I agree.
Wow. It does get you like that, though, right? Like, you think you make a sale, and I bet that time it burned you. You were like, yeah, we're good. We just got to wrap this up.
Yeah, I'll be back. It's okay. Rookie mistake. Next time I'm back, I'm not making it twice. So you're allowed to make it once, but,
Burn me once, shame on you. Burn me twice, shame on me. Like, I get that. But, like, look at that. Now you've got a new system going forward that probably will help sell people that have dirty data that says, oh, I just need to get it in this format and I can get it to them. I know when I was at JLL and I was at the, Dupe and going corporate real estate, we had a system where if you gave us 5 sets of data certain ways, we could import it and tell you more than you probably knew about it, because we just could combine it with our existing data. But everybody had to give it to me in those 5 separate ways, or I had to make it fit that model, because otherwise the system didn't work. If you did, you knew where you needed to buy and sell. If you didn't, you didn't. And it
would bend you.
And I mean, you'd think a large company, you'd like sign somebody big, and they worked with the biggest companies I've ever worked with, and millions of employees, and were involved. And no, not one company had it like totally ironed out. They all did it a little bit differently, but it was kind of the same. But it's enough where it won't work if you try to do a big formula. I'm sure, Ryan, you run into that all the time, where you like run a formula that works on like 90% of the data.
But I think even with you and I, right? We were at a time, we had all these communication centers. I don't want to mention the company, but they were acquiring they were acquiring other companies, literally, I don't know how many a year, whether it's 20 a year, and they come and they want Rob to put everything together and make it consistent and produce a report so that we can see how we're doing, right? And some of these companies would be 5-member mom and pops, and some of these are 200, employees with sophisticated data. Some people have servers in a wardrobe somewhere. Some people have, it's cloud or whatever it is, and it's always a challenge. But isn't that the beauty of life, though, that you have these challenges? Would you be happy?
I loved it, dude. I loved it. It was somebody called me a data green beret, and that's literally my brand. I still do that now. I find people who need help with those integrations, that maybe you have like an old system or you want to move to a new one, or you have some database that you want analysis on, and I'll build all the integrations to make your data warehouse, your data lake or whatever, because
absolutely
it's all over the place. Like there's no shortage of that kind of work. I'm happy to do it. Absolutely. It was a pivot because that company, so I did good. I think I did good at that company. I was really happy with the work I did there. I'm glad you give me a relatively positive review, because they totally terminated my position and they just said, hey, we're just eliminating your position. You didn't do anything wrong. We'll give you good references. Right. And I totally, it's easy to say that, 8 years later, having run a consulting company.
I was going to say, it's built Rob's brand, man. Part of this entire journey is like, I was tired of doing a good job and getting fired.
Yeah. Yeah, it hurts, man, and it definitely did.
Again, not to be philosophical on you, but sometimes this universe and this life, when something happens, it's sometimes a good thing. It's saying that, hey, dude, it's time to move in a slightly different direction. So, you must sit long enough to listen to what the universe is telling you, and then make that right pivot, and you'll be happier for it.
Oh, dude, I'm on board. I'm still pivoting. I'm listening to the universe every day. You just take that next step, right? That's why I've got my studio half there. We're getting there, but no, dude, that's all you do is take that next step. That's all you can do, right?
Absolutely.
But I remember, after I did that, I said, you know what? I did this big thing. I call it like data architecture, integration architecture. Mm-hmm. I bet everybody who's listening to this or watching this lives in something, right? Like a house or an apartment. Yeah. And I'm willing to bet those same amount of people aren't still sending a check to the architect who built their house or apartment. You're assuming that work is done and you don't have to pay for it. So I was like, wait a minute. If my role isn't going to be something a company needs to pay all the time, then that's fine. I'll just lean into the fact that I'll be there 60, 90, 180 days and charge appropriately and get out, because then they don't have to worry about keeping me on pay. I am not free, but I'm not expensive either. You know what I mean? Like you could pay a lot more and get a lot less, but I'm definitely not as cheap as some people who are available. Absolutely. And you get what you pay for too. Like you have somebody who you spend $40,000 a year to do what I do. You will get a different result than what you'd pay me. But you could pay $40,000 to me for a couple months, and I could probably give that person the data warehouse you're going to want them to manage. So it's learning that. And that took me forever mentally to go through and to realize. But yeah, man, I'm so happy to hear that you've moved more into analytics. I didn't know you started as engineering. Your communication skills were so strong when we met. I just thought you were like this. Like I was studying PMP at the same time you were, but I wasn't going to get certified. I just wanted to know what a good project manager would want, so I didn't piss him off.
What I was telling you was true. You just wanted to know what I was telling you was true. Yeah,
absolutely, 100%. If I could get you to lie on camera, I didn't have to pay you. On board. That's fantastic. No, but I love that you're moving more into the data side of it all. Like that's kind of cool to me. Like hearing you explain customer analytics, I love that. Like that's cool. Beautiful.
I'd honestly like to know how it went from an engineering degree to doing basically all communication and PM to now going back into a little bit more engineering. It sounds like, at least the number side of things.
You just mastered out communication?
You just have to let yourself go and take it one day at a time. And, like Rob said, listen to the universe. And when it says go left, you go left, so it wasn't too difficult. The other thing, and, engineers, I don't know whether there are any listeners who are engineers, but engineers, the work is hard, but the compensation or remuneration is low. It's one of my last jobs, engineering. I said I was working at the airport, and, this was, post 911. So they wouldn't allow you to get close to the plane. So you have to work at night, but you have to do a lot of work during the day. And then, you get to your runway at night so that you're not within 3,000 feet of the plane and, blah, blah, blah.
Oh my God.
So you're working 80 hours because you have to do, safety training, all that stuff. And you look at the amount of money you were making. And then the minute I turned right, if you will, and got another job, it was paying me $20,000, $30,000 more and working half the time. So engineers, don't stop your engineering, because engineering is beautiful, but it just meant that if you were not really a diehard, it just had to keep going. So, apart from the following the money, you're saying, hey, if I think I'm good at this communication thing, then let me move to other areas. Let me challenge myself. And then when you get to those areas, you see that you've kind of landed, so.
I got to think it was hard to get opportunities to communicate much at night. You're not like meeting stakeholders in the middle of the night when you're building a runway. They want you building the runway and shutting up about it.
Yeah, but there's no communication actually at night, because all the workers, you have, 200 people.
Oh, sure.
At night. So before they go in, there's a safety training required by, FAA or
200 people on a shift at night? Like on one?
Because they are steel benders, construction people. Yeah, they're all coming to work. And then in the morning they go. And then you come back and then you talk to the airport, see how they did, whether there's anything. And then you reserve the space again for night. It was just a revolving thing. But it was fun. It was fun. Yeah.
So you said you went with the ebb and flow of stuff. How did engineering become communication? Was it a job offer that you then learned the communication skills? Did you go like, I need this skill. Let me go take a course. Let me go find somebody who's good in this. Or was it just sort of like I know a lot of our guests have been like, I got thrown into a job. I didn't expect that responsibility and I just had to learn it.
Yeah, the latter, right? So, and again, like I was saying, you try to figure out, who you are, where your strong suits are, what is transferable from what you know, because engineering is ultimately analytics, right? You have an analytical mind, so I can go anywhere that is analytics. You have communication, you have execution. So where can that take me, right? Even today, it's sales. I still have to do execution, because you wake up in the morning and you really don't have a job in the morning, because you have to determine, I need to talk to, whatever the statistics is, 50 people to get a lead, 100 people to get a lead. So let me start my day and talk to 50 people, and then get some leads. Let me work through the leads. Then you get some customers. Let me make sure the customers are well taken care of. Let me do contracting. So that is the job, but then it requires discipline. And there's a statistic that whatever work you do today bears fruit in 60 to 90 days. So if you think that you can sit down and do nothing, trust me, in 60 to 90 days, you'll be in big trouble, because nothing is coming through your pipeline. And it's all numbers again, right? It's all numbers again.
I was just going to say, I love that you're hitting on the numbers for the sales and marketing. So a lot of people just think, kind of like we were talking about health insurance, like, oh, somebody will figure that out at corporate payment. I think we think for sales and marketing, the same kind of thing. Like, oh, they just do sales. Some guy just knows a bunch of people and that's how sales happen. But no, it definitely comes to like marketing awareness funnel has to send out so many million ads before the brand is even recognized. And then that gets into eventually become a hot lead or a code lead to a salesperson. And they have their own funnel that they're working through. And it's all data. I mean, I was sales analytics. After we did the data warehouse conversion, I was sales analytics strategist for that. So we did the commissions and payroll for all the salespeople. But yeah, it's all data, man.
Yeah.
That's fun being on that side. Yeah, I'll tell you, sales is definitely not poorly compensated compared to engineering. But boy, oh boy, you're the one who are feeding everybody. You're bringing in the meat that everybody's got to,
nothing
process.
Sells, nobody else does anything. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
We were just talking about that a couple episodes again too. Like a lot of people talking about entrepreneurship and stuff, not realizing that sales is your number one job when you run your own business and you're the only one there. Like it's part of the reason why.
That's the number one thing I don't hear from people. They'll tell me their awesome business idea and how they want to be rich or what they want to do. And I'm like, well, how are you going to sell that? Who are you going to sell that to? Well, people will buy it. All we need is 1,000 people. And I'm like, but you need 1,000 specific people to say yes to you or this doesn't exist. You know what I mean? Like, how are you going to get your first 10? And they're like, oh, I guess I'll ask my family. And then they just kind of like look up in the sky and you got to really have an idea,
I mean, ultimately, we shouldn't wait for our companies to train us, right? That responsibility should fall on us, right? And so, yes, it's good for companies to have a budget for training, but these days you go to YouTube, you go to Amazon on Kindle or, Audible, and you get something of interest. You can listen to it again and again and again, and you'd be able to do a little bit of what you want to do, right? Or supplement it with whatever little that you are being given officially or through the corporate channel. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's it. Just exposing people to, hey, you're responsible for self-improvement is news to some people. You know what I mean? A lot of people are waiting for their boss to say, I can't wait till they make me a manager and give me all that manager training. And it's like, they're not going to do that.
Yeah.
You got to show them you're ready to be a manager because you're ready. And you've got to learn that from somewhere. And it's probably not going to be your boss because if they're not teaching you, it's questionable if they have the skills to teach you how to be a manager, and
I agree.
It's hard to do that. It's hard when we go to and I said this the other day, like we go to a company and I had somebody on a while ago who teaches you how to interview and get a job. And it's like dating, right? Like you go on 1 or 2 dates, you meet a couple things, you say the nice stuff you did about each other. There's nothing like blaring bad in the past that they're hearing about. And then all of a sudden you're married and you're with a company for hopefully forever. And you hope they have like your next position ready and the one after that and the one after that. And meanwhile, the company's like, I hope we hit our margin this year so we can continue next year. Like they're not that they want to be a jerk. They don't want to say nobody has a job if we don't hit our numbers, but if nobody hits the numbers, there's no money to pay the people. So there's this whole chicken and egg situation. And I think Ryan has had a realization of a lot of that stuff in the last couple of years, just trying to show him all these different perspectives, talking to all these people, talking about the business ideas that he and I have been involved in. But yeah, man, I definitely appreciate you switching and doing the switch you did, going from engineering to communication and project management, but then switching project management to digital sales again, because you're going back and leveraging all the detail level stuff you already acquired.
It's all about explaining what are the transferable skills, and when people come, they said, how does this work? How can you explain it with a little bit of technical stuff, right? I'm not the most technical person. I'll go to a SME as needed, but how do I explain it to a layman that they understand? Oh yeah, this is great. And then how do you take care of them, right? So as part of the journey, whether it's, installation of something or, when you start the project itself, how do you make sure that you are popping in and saying, how are things going? What can I do for you, right? And that customer service is very helpful in making sure that companies thrive.
And I think just adding that skill to those engineers you said who are otherwise stuck, and like maybe they're at a job that they don't hate, but it doesn't pay bad enough to leave. If they were to add communication, they could be data engineers. It's surprising to me there's a whole thing called data engineering. I don't have an engineering degree. People hire me to be a data engineer all the time. My degree's in business. But, they just mean we want you to be really detailed. We want it to get done correctly, and we need it to run in production. And it's like, gotcha, I can do those things. But how many of those people could you save by just adding the right skills, Yeah. Oh, man. Another question I do ask everybody, and I don't know, maybe you never feel it. Maybe it's just, me. But have you ever heard of Imposter Syndrome?
If the universe guides you and you are moving into something, you might initially feel like an imposter, but then later on, if you measure your progress, I think some of you have read or watched a recent movie called Mr. Malcolm's List, right? And if you haven't watched it, it's set in the 1800 England, and there's this a very eligible bachelor who is very wealthy. And he, and I promise I'll get to the end in a second. This very eligible guy is very wealthy, and everybody, all the women in the town want him, right? So he goes on a date with one lady, she's called Julia in the movie, and after that he doesn't take her for another date, and so she's mortified and decides to seek revenge. So she goes for a friend who is in another small town, humble beginnings, to come and kind of. But then she also finds out that Mr. Malcolm has a list of criteria that he's judging these people by. And so if you don't hit something on the list, then you go. So now she goes to bring this lady from small beginnings, humble beginnings, and she's called Selena. And she comes and she says, hey, this is the list. So what you do is what an imposter does. She learns the list, and on the list, it includes playing the piano. She couldn't play the piano, but they figured out a way, walking properly, dance. Yeah, fake it till we make it. Ballroom dancing, some of that you could do. Something about politics, and they knew the area that, he was always about the corn laws or something of the 18th century. So they learned these things, right? So I think that's one of the things you do as an imposter. Anyway, the story ends where, of course, they fall in love and get married. But I'm just spoiling it for you there. But what happens is that during this period, what Selena did was to study. So as an imposter, if you go somewhere and you think you may not fit there, but something took you there, which means that there's a good reason that you should be there. You got to study. And when we say study, doesn't mean you have to go take a degree, go to YouTube, go somewhere, talk to people, educate yourself and measure take measurements or see where you need to be. Do I need to do 100% of this? Where am I now? 10%. Right. And then a week later, after some study, you are at 20%. You are at whatever percent. Right. And so what Malcolm's List taught me also is that, I know it seems like a story, but it taught me that you first got to study. So you should see the day that, Selena was dancing with Malcolm, very exactly what he wanted. She passed everything on the list. Of course, with these dramas, there's some, before they get married, there's a little bit of a fight there somewhere. But even, actually it's a good point. After the little fight, Malcolm realizes that she cannot play the piano. but she's already in love with the girl. So sometimes as an imposter, you go into a place where you think that you have to check everything, but your way of doing things, the reason your intention felt like it had to be there, right, is the right place to be. So yes,
that's all you need.
Yeah, that's all you need. And then you need to study, be kind to yourself, don't beat yourself up too much, and just look at the metrics and say, am I improving? Am I getting there? Will I get there?
I love how much of your part of this interview, Yaw, has focused on like the personal responsibility of your own growth. Like, I think that's one of the big things that Rob and I have talked about it for the year that we've been trying to grow this is that like even that idea he mentioned at the beginning of people not knowing which skills to do to even just level up in their careers they're at now. They're not taking that effort. They're not talking to those people. They're not figuring out which boxes they actually have to check. And sometimes it is as easy as that. Like you said, it's about studying. It's about studying your environment, the people you're hanging out with, the work you're doing. It's just, it's so...
But boy, didn't she feel like an imposter when she was just some random girl finding somebody else's list, But
no,
that's
she
not
knew
a
she
problem.
was an imposter. She knew she was an imposter. She knew she had to study. She knew she had to give these answers and whatever it is. But then she studied it, but then they connected, right? And so sometimes what happens is that when you have that inclination or not, or somebody told you to go into that industry, and that's why you are there. So there was something about you that made you right for that position. But until in those 100 days when you become, at the right place, you feel like an imposter. But once you commit yourself to it, study it, do all the right things, 100 days later, you're one of the guys, man. Don't worry about it.
I love it, y'all. I love it, man. I want to get people inspired to try. You got to try because nothing happens until you try. You know what I mean? And worry about if it doesn't fail later, if it fails or not later. Yeah. But we got to try.
Yeah. I mean, and personal responsibility, I think there's a book called Extreme Ownership where it's really extreme. Anything is my fault and I have something to do with it, And if you watch, old time movies, you watch Godfather, when Michael went out and shot the policeman and he went out into exile. And so the Godfather calls the family together and says, hey, peace treaty, my son is going to come down. Even if lightning strikes him somewhere, I'm going to blame one of you there, right? Extreme ownership. He's saying that even if a natural force kills my son, I'm going to blame one of you guys. That's extreme ownership, right?
Yes.
And I think sometimes you must do that. I mean, it sounds too extreme, but if you do that and you point the finger at yourself, you will find the solution to it.
I agree.
I love that, man. I love that. It resonates so well with everything that Rob has been trying to build lately. Like it hits home, man. It hits home to just dig in and just, like Rob said, try something and then look at it and figure out how to do it better and for yourself and for your career. I think a lot of people are addicted to the quick dopamine nowadays. We've got short form content and every video game out there where you click one button and you've got a ribbon and a reward and everything. And a lot of people don't see the value in doing that effort, especially if they feel like they're going towards failure the first time.
Yeah. And let me add another thing. And maybe today you guys thought you were doing data and I'm giving you philosophy, but
no, this is exactly what we want. Cause a lot of people come to my show and say, hey, I don't know if my show fits your stuff. Cause like Brad Kohler had a great episode. He's like, well, I don't know if decision-making is data. And I'm like, as the guy who just did the data, I would have loved to be in the decision-making room. I would love to know the stuff you're dealing with to get these projects out the door or to help solve the fires I don't have to deal with. So I'm totally on board.
So what I was going to say was that when you're doing something and the goal of what you're doing is for yourself, the results are typically mediocre. But when you are doing something, you're saying, I'm trying to help this group of people, right? The universe is going to help you. So even if you look at, some of these artists, Mary J. Blige or somebody, right? They have their followers because the song she sings, they relate to it. She's not singing the song for herself. It may be her story, but she's singing it for her people. Right. And so they hear it and they love it. Right. Rob, what you're doing out there, helping people understand data, you're not doing it for yourself. So you are going to be successful. It's just a universal law. You don't have to even worry about it. You know what I mean? So whatever you do, if you just do it for your small corner, then the results are small. But if you say, you know what, I'm putting my all into it for the benefit of the majority of people, you're going to be successful.
Oh, I love it, man. Well, if there's anything I can do for you, you let me know, man, or anybody I'm down to help them. Let's get these people in these jobs. Let's get some. If you know any of those engineers who hate their job and want to go somewhere else, let's talk about getting them somewhere. Because
So I mean, data. I mean, we are not hiring, data now, but In terms of data, people should, they can learn these things on their own, but, we're looking for people, in this industry, and not just my company, but it's a big industry, risk adjustment, in healthcare. Some people call it healthcare IT, healthcare data, or healthcare data analytics. It comes with data things, but, you need to know some SQL, Python helps, right? There's a part of it that you can do. You need communication. So you need your Tableau and your Looker and your, some of those tools, visualization tools, Power BI,
Yes.
You need to be able to analyze large volumes of data because, that's what it is. There's a membership with, so a chart has sometimes 100 pages or whatever. You need to be able to know how to analyze a lot of data and be able to pull out the story of disease prevalence or effectiveness of health interventions and stuff like that. So, and you don't have to get it all in one day, but, if people start to commit themselves to some part of the data, or another part of the data, you should be fine. You should be great.
I agree completely. I mean, I look up data scientists. I keep it on my board because I looked it up in the end of January, and there were 19,000 plus jobs that were over $100,000 a year. And all you need is stats, business, and some soft skills.
Yeah.
And a good percentage of those were remote jobs. And I'm not saying that everybody who's applying now could apply, but I'm saying if you're not targeting something like that in the next 5 years, why not? Yeah. What you should be, because if you're not going to be the data scientist, maybe you'll be the guy who helps communicate his results or manage their schedule or prep the data for them or something. Because man, there is an onslaught of these jobs coming and people need to get ready for them,
I agree. Yeah. But I mean, in terms of, I don't know how many viewers you guys have, but, a salesman is always a salesman. And if you get any companies with health plan in their name, so they are health insurance companies, and you think that, and we run pilots, right? Free pilots where you come and you test your data with us, 200 charts, 100 charts or whatever it is to see whether it's good or not, Give us a call.
Oh, I think that's a very good option. Honestly, I think you offer a good service there. Because like I said, the people I know who are like, is this a good ROI or not? The only way you're going to know that is work with your exec data. Hey, what am I actually going to do with you or not? And I mean, until then, you don't really know.
We normally would want them, to commit to the project. So they might pay for the 100 charts. But I mean, think about it. It's nothing. It's, $5, $4, whatever it is.
And that's pretty standard.
If your thing is pure and there are no gaps, you get a refund. Right. So any company.
Oh, that's nice, actually.
Yeah. So, but we don't want you to come and say it's free. Then you don't respect it. Then you don't commit your resources to it. And say, I didn't give you all the data or something like that. We want to make sure that you come, because you feel you're paying something. You give us. I
actually really like that because then you get cleaner data. And to your point, if you don't get clean data, you have the money to fix it. If your data is dirty, we'll fix it for you. That's actually a fair deal. It is a fair deal. It's a fair.
And several people come and say the same thing. Oh, we can do this. But come try us out. Contact Rob and he'll contact me and let's talk and see whether we can solve some problems. There are providers.
Oh, you bet. So we'll give you, actually, before we wrap up, I'll give you 60 seconds to go ahead and say, if people do want to reach out to you, what's the best way to do that? Is it to go to your LinkedIn? Do you have something you want to give a call to action to? Is there also whatever you want? We'll email to my editor and we'll go ahead and we'll put that in the link description.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think LinkedIn is a great place, but I'm in sales, so I'm not afraid of the phone call. My number is 832.
Hell yeah, he's in sales.
Yeah. 7567. I mean, come and let's talk. I'm not afraid. I'm not hiding.
I love it. Yeah.
832-216-7567. If I'm in a meeting, leave me a voicemail. I'll call you back. Or go to LinkedIn. Yaw Asante is not a very, very common name, so it might be easy to find me. I work with Rapid like quick, but it's 2 A's. And let's give you a deal. Let's see what we can do. Whether you're a provider, whether you're a payer. Once you're in the risk adjustment space, whether you need charts to be pulled, we can do whatever it is that we can do to make sure that your journey to risk adjustment, helping the people have a quality care at a reduced price is all we are trying to do here. So I appreciate it. But it was fun talking to you. And
well, you're only there until I'm able to steal you, Yaw, because I would love you to help do my project management and sales, man. Because God knows I need both of those. Ask Ryan. I need project management and sales.
We will help you. Once it's for the big group like this, we'll help you, right? If it's just for you, I might not. But once it's for the larger community, I'll help you.
I'm in. Sold.
Awesome.
Thank you again
Awesome.
so much for the time. It's so great catching up with you, man. And I love showing Ryan that, look, these are real people. These aren't just randos that I, get ready for the show to pretend you're friendly.
Rob actually had a job. He was actually employed, and he knew real people.
There was a time.
Believe it. So he's going to bring people to show that he was really employed. He was employee number 7. Just so you know.
He's just trying to prove his sanity at this point, y'all. It's not for me.
It is, dude. I wonder if it was a video game by now. It's been a minute. So
absolutely. That was a pleasure, Ryan, Dave, Rob. It was a pleasure talking to you guys.
Likewise,
Excellent.
y'all. Thank you so much for your time today, man. It was very insightful. I hope we can talk to you again in the near future on the show.
Let's see. I might move to something else, and then we'll do it again.
Yeah,
I love it. I love it.
Take care,
All right,
y'all.
guys.
Yeah,
Take care.
thanks, y'all.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for joining Podcast Like a Business on our journey to discover just how everything is data. If you want to watch the next episode or one of our favorites, click on the thumbnails here for more Podcast Lab and find us wherever you like to listen to podcasts.